What's happening, people? Welcome back to Starfish Spurs. It's a Spurs transfer window review. So I'm looking forward to getting into today's show. I'm joined by, as always, often now, Louis, admin of the page. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me on this special show.
It is a special show indeed. We don't
It
usually
is.
do these, but it is the end of the summer transfer window. So thank you very much for coming on. Philip, thank you also for coming on. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. Thanks also for the invite again. It's a pleasure to be on again. I love your content and looking forward to get stuck in.
Oh, thank you very much. No, it should be a good one tonight. A reminder, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so, and it does help the channel grow. This episode will be available wherever you get your podcast platforms. It is a special one on top of your one show you get a week. So 2 for this week, spoilt for choice. So don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review if you are listening, wherever it may be, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music. But really appreciate you guys in particular, because you're what you often listen to the end. But we will crack straight into it. And I'll read out some stats from this summer transfer window, because we've spent 125 million. We've got 42 million from player sales, 5 players in, 8 players out the door for good, and the wage bill down by at least 32 million. And also the average squad age down to 25. I found all those statistics quite interesting. So firstly, Philip, has it been as bad, the window, as people make out? We'll get on to kind of what you rate out of 10 later, but based on those stats, it seems promising, right?
Absolutely. To answer your question easily, I say it's not been as bad as a lot of certainly on X, right? On online. Let's say there's a lot of polarization on there anyways, right? A lot of positive fans, but then also a lot of negative fans. And I think it's always going to be the way. But I think, there's been a bit too much negativity around the window overall. I think it's very easy to forget about the outgoings. A transfer window isn't just about getting new players in, right? It's not just, like Championship Manager, fantasy football, right? We want to spend 40 million on this person. We want to get another one there. Our squad has been bloated for years, I would say. We've always had challenges of getting people out the door that, have either come to the end of their Spurs career or have never really started their Spurs career, after we spend a lot of money on them. And that's been a problem for years, right? That's been a problem for certainly at least 30 years, right? I would say, right? Since the 90s, we've always found it difficult. So the fact that we have done it and we've actually got a lot of players out, including people like Lo Celso now, who's, been on high wages. He's never really fitted in, Ndombele is finally out the door. Those kind of players that never really made it, they're not there anymore. I think it's underrated in terms of what we've actually managed to do on that front. So I for one, actually applaud, Manga and the other people in there who are involved in that, and making sure that we get rid of these people, right? So from that perspective, I think it's been a very, very good window. I always keep forgetting that we did actually get Solanke as well. So
he's injured, I suppose. It's easy to forget.
Yeah, like when I add him on to the other players that we've got in, including some great young talent, obviously, Archie Gray and Bergvall. I mean, we don't want to hype maybe someone like Bergvall up too much, right? But from looking at him and from looking at the kind of teams that are after him, the fact that he's already pretty physically big, like he could be really, really important for us. And I think that if you add Solanke onto that and Odebert now as well as an example, then it certainly hasn't been as disappointing as a lot of online fans would say. However, I'm sure we'll get into a couple of little points around potentially other incomings that would have been made, because I certainly do think that we are left short in a couple of areas, and I'm surprised that we didn't make some kind of moves in the last week of the window. So it kind of leaves me with a bit of a bittersweet taste, maybe more than bittersweet. So actually slightly negative on some of those aspects, which I don't really quite plan. But again, summary of the whole window. It's actually better than I expected, if I can put it that way. If you look at all of the outgoings and the incomings and the young players that we've kind of got in as well.
Yeah,
Personally.
no, I think that's that is a really fair, balanced kind of way of looking at it. You know, it could have been better. We could have seen more activity at the end, but generally, maybe it's not as bad, as some people make out. But if anyone, kind of feels differently or the same about that, do get involved in the comments below. If you're listening live on YouTube, very keen to get your thoughts. But Lewis, based on those stats that I read out, I mean, it's something in particular, 125 million spent. We'll get later whether it was well spent or not, but is it as bad generally as some people make out? I mean, people, go as far as saying a 1-2 out of 10 window. Can you understand where they're coming from?
Maybe. I don't think it's a bad window. I wouldn't say it's an amazing window. I wouldn't say it's a very good window. I think it's just a decent, good window. I don't think it's a 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. I think that's too low. I think because we've moved on a lot of dead wood, and that's something you always have to factor in, as said by Philip. You have to factor in we moved on a lot of dead wood. But everyone that says I say this, and everyone come up saying, "Oh, but every window we have dead wood to move on." Clubs like City, Arsenal only need to add 1 or 2 players to their team, but there's us keep on having to move on this dead wood every year on year. But if you look at it, most windows like previously, we never move on this dead wood. They always just sit there on the bench every year. But we've moved them on now, which is good. I think from an incomings perspective, I think it's a decent window. I feel like we maybe could have signed 1 or 2 more players, maybe to just add a bit more depth into our squad. Maybe in defence. I mean, if you look at our Europa League squad, our defenders are a bit. There's not many there, and if you include the fact that Romero might be suspended because of what he did against AC Milan at home in the Champions League, then our defence options for the group league phases are really. But there's not many of them because Jed Spence is not in the squad for some reason. So I think that there definitely could have been some more signings, but I still think overall it was a good window.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on, I mean, that Europa League squad, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but 4 goalkeepers picked, and we've really got, well, I would argue, no cover in either fullback position. I know Archie Gray can play there, but I think we should be playing him in his best kind of position. I think worst comes to worst year, he can play there, but Jed Spence, unless it's something we're not seeing, I don't quite know. He can play either side, but apparently you can change it in the January transfer window after the group stage. Philip, what do you make of the squad that has been picked?
Well, I mean, I was shocked that Jed Spence wasn't in the squad. I mean, and I'm still waiting on a valid explanation, to be honest, on why, because he really impressed in pre-season, right? And I think it was clear he's had conversations with Ange. He had offers to leave, right? Actually, and of course we don't know if he just rejected them or if the money wasn't right, maybe for us. But I'm pretty sure he was under the impression that he would have been playing in Europe, right? And we need that strength and depth. Obviously, he can replace Porro if Porro wants a breather. And he can play on the left, right? I don't think he's particularly special on the left, but he did okay there, right? And I'd certainly rather that he plays there, to be honest, than Davies comes in like on the left.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm okay for Davies to come in for a game here and there, maybe even at the back, because I think that if he's got the right defender next to him, right, who marshals him properly, I think that they can play together. Whereas if he has to do that inverted role and get up and down with pace quite a lot, I'm not convinced that Davies can do that undulation. And that then goes back to the point, like Lewis also said, and that's where the window wasn't perfect, was that why didn't we get another left-sided defender? We must have been able to identify another left-sided defender, right, that could come in. I think Ange said that we didn't want to get in the way of some of the young players coming through, including the young Croatian lad, is it Vucevic or Vuskovic, who's coming in next season, right, who's a massive talent. He's a huge talent.
He looks good.
But if Destiny gets injured or if he needs a break, I mean, what are we going to do in Europe? I mean, there's no real plan there. And I'm not sure that we want to be playing Mickey Van der Ven as the left inverted fullback all the time, especially when he's actually vital, as you could see at the weekend, right? He is vital in that defense, right? Especially if we're playing that high line. So I was shocked, and I don't know why we've got 4 keepers on there. I
It's
don't
crazy.
why is Forster in there? I don't know. I mean,
I don't get it.
I was really quite shocked by that and a bit very annoyed, because if I was Spence, I mean, I can only imagine that Jed he must be pretty distraught by that. To be honest, I would be very surprised if they had conversations around it in advance and he was fine with that. Do you know what I mean? Because he's probably hardly going to play, I think, in the league. Unless again if there is injuries. So yeah, I mean, it was a shock. And again, my point on the transfer window, coming back to that European League squad, is also kind of what Lewis said, that we should have bought one more player in there. To be fair, we could have even loaned a player or something, right? Even if that was the worst case. Remember when we got Longley in, right, a couple of seasons ago? And say what you want about him, whether he was a good or a bad player, but we got him in on a loan and he did a job, right, for that season. And maybe we could have done something like that would at least get us through to January or to the summer, right? But I think we're awfully short there. And yeah, I'm not really sure how we're going to do it in Europe, to be honest.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, Lewis, you did touch on it there, but again, what your overall thoughts on that, Europa League squad? I mean, I think Jed Spencer's not being there is crazy. Obviously, I know that you like him, but can you even understand why we would take 4 goalkeepers? It's not like we got to fill a spot or anything. We've got plenty of options to choose from. I get 2, even 3, I go, really? But 4? I mean, wow.
Just covering all angles in case 3 of our goalkeepers get injured, I'm assuming. But, the chance of that happening is quite low. But I don't know. It's really confusing. I know that apparently I think it's because we didn't have enough. Maybe was it club trained players that we had to trim our squad from 28 down to about 25. I think it was something like that.
That's another reason why you wouldn't choose 4 goalkeepers, surely. You've got less options to choose from. It's crazy.
We had to. I know we had to trim our squad down by a few names because we didn't have enough academy trained players to fit the criteria. So that's probably why Jed Spencer's been not included. We probably would have included him if not. And I think some people pointed out that Mikey Moore wasn't in there, but I think it's because you can add under 21 players in and not take up a spot. So I'm pretty sure he will be in there. And like players maybe like I don't know any Will Lancashire as well. I think they can be included without taking up a spot in the under 21
That's good then.
So anyone that is confused about that, that's why. But still, it's very weird. 4 goalkeepers, not really necessary. And Andrew's gone like, let's just chuck in 15 attackers because that's how I want to play football. But it doesn't really make much sense. But I don't know. I mean, it's weird because if Pedro Porro gets injured, what do we do then? I don't understand. Is it Dragusin plays right back? Is it Archie Gray exactly? I don't really.
He's not right back there, and he doesn't run for there. So I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Going up against Rangers, Roma, Galatasaray away.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm not trying to disrespect teams like Karabag or Elfsborg or Ferencváros, the lower teams we're playing. But do we really need to be playing Pedro Porro against these clubs to get a result? I don't think so. We can play Jed Spence. You can play people like Ashley Phillips we sent on loan. We can play these players. They'll do the job and you'll probably still get the win. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect these clubs at all, but they're good enough to get a win, are they not? Do we have to play our best team Thursday, Sunday to get wins? I don't think we do.
No, I don't think so. Big up Mark in the chat, and everyone else, do get involved in the comments if you are listening live on YouTube. But incomings this window, 125 million spent. I mean, that's a lot considering personally, what I think anyway. It just doesn't feel that much if you look at our players. But we brought in Dominic Solanke, Archie Gray, Wilson Odebear, Yang, who joins in January, Timo Werner on loan, and Bergford obviously already agreed pre-window. Philip, is that money, been well spent? You mentioned there that we've been left short in a few areas. If you had 125 billion, I mean, it's easy as opposed to say now. Would you have done what Spurs done with that money? Would you have bought less players, but maybe better? How would you have done it?
It's a good question. Obviously, I think overall we've spent the money quite well. The money that we've actually spent. You mentioned Timo Werner. I mean, I didn't include that in the first analysis of the window, but on reflection, that was a terrible decision, I think, to bring him in. And when it happened at the time, I was okay with it when it happened. Actually, like when we at the beginning of the window, I thought, well, you know what, it's a bit of a no risk kind of thing, right? We've loaned him again. I don't think it's an obligation even to buy, is it, on him?
It's
I think
not. It's not. It's a £9 million option.
Yeah,
it's
it's
an
£9
option.
million option.
It's an option. His wages aren't that high, so he's still very fast, right? And he actually tries sometimes to go past players, and he can put a ball in, right? Like Ange likes, I think, right? How he likes his play. But you saw him the other day when he played on the right. I think it was against I can't remember. Was it the last game now, actually?
Newcastle.
Or was it Newcastle? Yeah, when he came on the right, and he was pretty hopeless. And he can't play there, and he's realistically not going to play through the middle in the Ange system. So the only place he can come on is on the left, and I don't see him offering enough there. And unfortunately, now you see with the window, with getting Odobert in, who, by the way, I'd never really heard of him, to be honest. Like I'd maybe seen him play for Burnley, but I didn't really know who he was. And to be fair to him, he looks like a really good talent, and I think that he is ready to play. But in fact, he's definitely ready to play, right? He looks good. He's the one player who can actually dribble past players that we've got, which something we need. But Timo Werner is blocking that left space now, especially if we want Mikey Moore to come in and get minutes, which he needs to. There's a pressure then on Ange, right, to say, well, Werner, you're ahead of him, right? Like got you in to kind of come off the bench or do a job. And I guess, of course, in the Europa League, maybe Werner will actually start games against then the likes of Quarabag and maybe even some of the bigger games. And okay, that's probably okay. But when you then look at players like Diaz for Liverpool the other day at United, and mention, I mean, you can mention probably another 3 or 4 wingers, right, for the top 3 or 4 teams. That's something that we don't have. And I just feel that maybe if we hadn't got Timo Werner in, if we hadn't made that decision and we had an extra spot in the squad, that either we would have still got Odobert in, or we wouldn't have done, and we would have gone out and really gone all in for Eze, or for maybe a Pedro Neto kind of player, right? I think Pedro Neto probably wasn't going to come to us after it became clear that Chelsea were in for him, right? And he is injury prone, but Odobert still isn't Pedro Neto. And I think that on the wing, we still lack top class. And I don't want to go into too much detail now on this point, because again, this is something that can be discussed in a whole other thing. But my concern around those options, also with Werner, is you saw against Newcastle now, and you saw against Leicester as well, but certainly against Newcastle, we just didn't create enough high XG chances. Where we are almost expected to score, like Newcastle did. They created 2 racy tap-ins. And I just feel that if we had someone like a Diaz or someone with that better quality on the wing, we're automatically going to get better decision-making, which we didn't have. And I really hope that we get that, over the next 3 months, that forward line kind of starts to click, and makes the right decisions. Because for me, that's one of the biggest concerns at the moment. All the possession is great, but where are the big chances? Like, where are the, you know what I mean? And at the moment, there is something still significantly missing there. And that's just where I think, when going back to your point about the incomings, I think we bought good players, and certainly Odobert in midfield is one for us. Bergvall, Gray, if we want to spend money, that much money on top young players, and they both are genuinely top players. If they play games, they'll be playing for both England and Sweden, right, very shortly. But we could have maybe just gone one more little step, little step. So that's the one thing where I would say we could have done on top. Maybe if we hadn't got Werner, if we hadn't spent the money on Werner, which wasn't much, but still he's a wage, he's a spot. Maybe we could have gone out and dropped another 50 or 60 million. You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. I don't think we were ever going to get Eze in the end because
No.
the release clause, I think, was too high. You know, no one else was in for Eze either, right? To be fair. So, but I have that nagging feeling we could have just done one thing more attacking wise, you know. And sorry, I'm rambling on here a bit, but
No, you're fine.
My last point on the money, because obviously Solanke was the biggest chunk of that. A lot of money, 65 million. But where do you get a proven number 9 from nowadays? You know, and I think Solanke has proven it in the Premier League. A lot of people will say he's a one-season wonder or something like that because he's only really bloomed last year. But if you look at like how he's played in games and the attributes that he has, his pace and his finishing, to be fair, you know, he's not that old. He's used to the physicality and the speed of the Premier League. I don't think you're going to get much better than that. And I'm actually fully okay with getting Solanke in. The fact that he's injured, of course, now is just typical Spurs. So I don't know. He's probably going to be out for the season or something in the end, you know, now. So let's see.
Hopefully not. But no, I agree generally with what you're saying. And, you know, however you feel about this ownership or the window, one thing we have done is spent the money. But I think you can make a very good case either way, whether we spent the money well or not. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think it's a Spurs thing to do, to spend the money, but not spend it well. I mean, we've chucked money at players. I mean, Archie Gray, I mean, Lewis, you're going to like me for this one. And I like the player, but that is 35 million for a bench warmer. And it's 35 million for a squad player and a squad option. Whatever you think of Archie Gray, that is going to be his role, unless injuries take place at Spurs this year. And I get it. And we've got to be careful as fans because we're going, look, spend the money. We need a stronger bench. But at the same time, you know, we're moaning about 35 million spent on Archie Gray. Solanke's interesting. I think a player that really suits the system. But you see Ivan Toney go for 40 million. You go 65 million for Solanke. Have we overpaid for him? Odebear, came out of nowhere. Still, what was it, 25 million? I mean, I still think that's a lot. But if these players do well, I suppose that's all that matters. But you mentioned there, Philip, about Timo Werner. I actually felt the same issue when he came in. I was actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to be honest with you here, I was for it because I was like, there's no money involved in terms of the loan fee. Yeah. We get a cheaper option to buy. And with the Europa League, he's got experience in that situation. For me, it just made sense. But you do see him like on the right. It clearly isn't up to it on that side. He still can't finish chances. And the reality is we've got a lot of options, if you like it or not, on that left-hand side in Odebear, in Son, and also in Mikey Moore. So it's a strange area to add depth in. So there we go, I suppose. But yeah, go on, Philip.
Can I just add one more point about what you said about
of course.
Spurs have a history of, or we have a history of spending kind of badly, right? I mean, you only have to go back now to what, 3 years ago or 4 years. Well, actually, it's probably even longer. Like when we bought a Ndombele.
That 2019 window. I planned a piece later to come onto it. It's you know, that bad.
and them two alone were what, 100 million or something, probably, or 110
something
million
like that. Crazy.
You know? So like, we say what you like about the ownership, right? And again, there's different elements of, you know, whether ENIC are good or not, you know, and I respect fans that are, you know, also kind of ENIC out, right? I do respect fans that say that, but you know, you have to also look that we have been prepared to spend money when we've kind of had to in some ways, right? There was pressure to spend money on those players in that window, and we did it. It was just a shame that the scouting probably at that time, or, you know, the people that kind of work out whether they're going to be successful in the Premier League even maybe got it wrong. Like, we got that completely wrong, and we've done it before many times. And all I can say is now, looking at how Lange and his team are set up, we do seem to be doing better, including with Paratici, right? All the players that have come in since kind of Conte's gone, right? Even Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero, even you can count into that. Porro, you know, Kulusevski, for what he cost, he was what, 20 something million. and there's probably more, right? I mean, we have bought well. I think, I
Yeah.
think
that's the thing, though, Philip. We either buy really well or we buy awfully. Like you mentioned, Kulusevski. I mean, what a buy! I think that was. I think it was really good value. Vicario, whether he's a goalkeeper taking us next level or not, I don't know. But this is really good business for some players. Like Maddison, I think at the time certainly was a steal. But then we do like Ndombele or even like Jack Clark or Celso, where we don't get anything, if anything at all, back for what we pay. So we do some really, really strange ones like that. I mean, Brennan Johnson, I'm a big fan of. Anyone that knows me will know that. But we just, we chuck money at him, really. When, did we go for the wrong player at Forest? I personally would have gone for Morgan Gibbs-White at the time. As much as I like Brennan Johnson, I think it would have been a little bit cheaper and maybe what we needed at the time. So I think we do have a habit of chucking money at things, but that's good in a way. You just want to get the player in sometimes. That has to be done. But when people ask me to kind of rate the transfer window, I always wish it was done separately on incomings and outgoings, because I look at the outgoings and go, for me, that's a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
I don't think we got an excellent deal for Højbjerg. I know not a lot of people agree with me on that, but I think we could have got better. So that's probably why it's not a 10. But incomings, I feel a bit in between with, and honestly, it depends on the day. You hear different things from different people, and I find some people were a really good case across White is a good window, and actually not so much either when you compare it to others. So I totally understand flexibility on that. But Lewis, before we go on to just rating the transfer window, do you think we've spent that 125 million well?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think
it's hard, isn't it?
Yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. I think we needed a striker. We desperately needed a striker, and we've done that. We spent the money. Did we overpay for Solanke? Yeah, we did. But I mean, it is what it is. You're always going to overpay in this climate of the market. You rarely find someone that you're going to buy, and you're going to buy really underpay for them and get good value, because it doesn't happen anymore. So he was English. He's homegrown. Adds value, as it always does. I think 65 million is definitely overpaying, but it is what it is. We needed him. And they'll add a lot, because since Harry Kane left, we've never really had an aerial threat going forward. I mean, last season, you look at us, we're crossing in the box, and it's just Son there. As much as I love him, he's not going to do any damage in the air. So I think we got the striker we desperately needed. But then I think that's probably where the wise spending maybe stops, because as much as I do love Archie Gray, and I think he will be a future England midfielder. Of course he will be. He's got the talent. I think he's incredible talent. But as you said, to sit on the bench is 40 million worth a player to sit on our bench right now. We're not a Man City. We haven't got. We're not that in that sort of a team where we can pay for these players to sit on the bench. We need to go for. We're a team that needs to add to our starting 11 now, and we haven't really done that apart from Solanke. So I think he's a good signing, but
fair point.
As you said, he will be sitting on the bench. Wilson Odobert was quite interesting. I mean, I only know him because I signed him on Football Manager, and I was glad Spurs took my advice. But I think he's a good player. I mean, I was rather surprised because it just came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh wow, Wilson Odobert joined, and I was like, okay then. But I think that's it's a really Spursy signing, because we probably wanted Eze, we probably wanted Pedro Neto, and then we've gone, okay, how can we get a player like them but cheapskate it? Wilson Odobert, that's the man I want. We do it all the time. You look at someone, it's too expensive, let's go for someone cheaper. And you're not going to get anywhere by doing that. But
I was going to say, can you win doing that?
No.
Eventually, do you find out a really good young player? Or because I'm all for. I don't know about you, Lewis. I'm all for buying young talent, but there has to be a point, doesn't there? How can we close the gap to the best teams in England and the best teams in the world? And sometimes you've got to mix it up a little bit. And I look at it as a release clause, 68 million. Whether it's got to be completely up to the manager and obviously what's within budget. But sometimes I think you have to go. It's not a case of Spurs just going and paying the money, but the player the perfect player for the system, if you like, not like who could be perfect in 5-10 years time. All about buying for the future. But I feel like this window is, like we're going forward 4 or 5 years time, which is great to give us an advantage, leapfrog other teams. But also, I think we have forgotten a little bit about this season. I do
we have, because Is this really that? I feel like every year now we're just buying young talent, like Brian Gill a few seasons ago. Like we're always thinking about the future, but we're never thinking about now. So there's no success now, and there hasn't been success for years. So are we always just buying young players on the hope that in 5 years' time there will eventually be success? Because I mean, if you look at it right now, when Young Min Hoy comes in, another left winger, by the way, Timo Werner, Wilson Odobert, Mikey Moore,
It's
Son.
crazy.
Manor Suleiman's out on loan. How many left wingers do we want in our squad, by the way? How many left wingers do we want? Is Young Min Hoy, when he comes in, going to get one single minute? No, he will not get a minute.
But are any of those left wingers you mentioned
Good enough.
good? Yeah, good enough. And I love Sonny, and I love everyone actually you mentioned there. But are they good enough to take you to the next level? And I don't like to have these discussions, and I've been defending our wingers in particular. But if you look at them, does it scare a Manchester City? Does it scare an Arsenal? I mean,
No.
Arsenal next weekend. It doesn't, does it? Sadly,
I think as a big
the
six
midfield
club,
does. I think the defense does, but
I think out of the so-called big six, we probably do have like sets of wingers. Probably the worst. Maybe Man United, maybe a little bit better than Man United's, but I don't think it's higher than that. I mean, Chelsea. I mean, I'd probably prefer Chelsea's wingers than us. Maybe Madueke,
yeah,
Pedro
Palmer,
Neto.
Mamake, I would.
Palmer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as a big six club, wingers, and the thing is about Ange Postecoglou's system, right? Wingers are very, very key to his system. They spread the play, they hug the sidelines, and they cross it in. The wingers and wide play is so key to Ange Postecoglou's system that you can't cheapskate it. You have to go out and you really have to have some of the best wingers in your league, like Celtic. I mean, Celtic, they dominate the Scottish Premier League, but they probably had the best wingers in the league. That was so key to him winning the Scottish Premier League, doing the treble when he did that. But I think we really, signings wise, throughout the transfer window, we definitely needed to sign a big hitter winger, a big hitter wide man, an Eze type player. As Philip mentioned, we needed to go big on that as well. Because if you're looking at this season, if you're looking at top four, do you think that players like Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, and Son on the left, is that good enough to win a trophy? Is that Europa League, Carabao Cup? Is that good enough to get top four?
No, it's
Probably not.
But that's all. But that's also why, realistically, we're not going to make Champions League probably this season either. I don't.
Unless we win the Europa League, because I don't think we'll win top four.
No, because if someone like Aston Villa for me is further than us. Like I think they're a better team than us. I think they're more. What's the word? They're playing more as a team at the moment, right? They know exactly what they're doing and they're set up really well. And I'm not saying that we're not, but we're still trying to understand how to play the Ange ball system. And as Lewis said there, and as I said previously, like with the wingers, I mean, that is what Ange needs. He needs players that can go past the player, right, and then come and cut it back for a relatively easy finish, right, or at least like a kind of a slide into the box. And the other thing that I don't quite get is that we got Odobert in, but he's right-footed, I think, right? I'm pretty sure he's right-footed, really.
Yeah, he is.
So from my understanding, under Ange ball, he would actually work better on the right, because he can go on the outside, which is where Brennan also is better on the right. But if you've got him on the left, then of course he's still going to be dangerous if he cuts inside. But he's not going to do what Ange ball needs doing. And then you've only really got Son. And Son blows hot and cold now. That's the reality.
Yeah.
He has good games, very good games still, but he also has other games where he's not in the game. He's not touching the ball. And he's not good enough on duration, I think, to play that left winger role for us. And this is where, again, it comes back to the window from the incomings. I think we spent the players that we bought in for 120 million, bearing in mind one player can cost 60 million now or 50. I think overall we did a good job, but we should have got in one more world-class, ready-to-go winger. Like if it would have been Neto, great, right? And then we have to see if he's fit, but Neto would have fit the bill. Or someone else, right, who just has that, that absolute skill. I would have rather we even went in for Chiesa, to be honest. On reflection, obviously, instead of Werner, but for like 10 million, I mean, Chiesa's an absolute steal, right? Even he's obviously got injuries and stuff, but
did Spurs miss out on that? Do you think?
Well, I
Yeah.
think I think we could have got him if we were linked with him like in July. I think, earlier on in the transfer window. I don't think we followed up, our interest reading between the lines. I think we could have got him if we really went all out for him. And then at some point, obviously, Liverpool came in. And to be fair, we're probably going to lose out to Liverpool, right? Realistically, I think if it's a one-on-one kind of choice. Although arguably at Liverpool, he's not going to play every week either, right? Looking at their options that they've got there. So I don't know, but like just to come back quickly to, going that extra level and spending big money on one player. Unfortunately, those cases where we've bought like Ndombele and Lo Celso probably doesn't really help the situation now, because whether it's Levy signing it off, whether it's someone else signing it off, we haven't made those big money transfers work. And I think now there is a bit of hesitancy when it comes to kind of going above that 50 million mark, for a player. And we haven't really
Yeah.
done it since then, have we?
I think it's the club being scared now. I'll be honest. I think we've signed Ndombele. I think they've looked at that as a massive failure, and I think now the higher ups are looking at that and thinking we can't do that again. So I think they're Solanke. I think we're interested in for a while though, and there was a really back and forth with the money because we're so scared now to sign someone that's more than 55 million, and for it to just a flop.
But a lot of people say, Neto, there is that injury risk. That's true, but I think Solanke's a risk as well. I think that he's right for the system, but, he's one season really of consistent numbers. As much as I wanted him at the club, he hasn't got much to say. You look at his time at Liverpool and Chelsea, you can't go that went as it planned. Not, of course, everything does in a footballer's career. So every transfer, there's an element of risk. Every transfer, even from signings like Bergvall, there's a risk with anything. So, again, is it the risk that we're missing? Because we have taken the risk and it often hasn't paid off. But I just feel we're lacking something to get to that next level for me.
Arguably as well. I mean, you could look at it as well and say, well, have we got a return on investment for Richie?
No.
I mean, Richarlison cost 60, didn't he? Or 65?
Yeah.
So actually, and we bought him like he was the last big kind of money signing. And let's be honest, I mean, he hasn't performed, right? He's flopped. Let's be honest. I mean, he had a couple of good games where he scored a couple of goals. He had a little run, I think, when he was out of injuries and stuff, right? Where he scored 5 or 6 goals in 8 games or something like that. But for the money that he cost, in terms of what he's given us, he hasn't given us anything really. And I do wonder whether we really were expecting to move him on, whether it was to Saudi or somewhere else, and we were maybe counting with that money as well, possibly, because it seemed like we were quite happy for him to go in some ways. And then in the end, obviously, he refused to go. And it was like, oh, yeah, well, we're also happy for him to stay. I don't know. But it just shows, though, that actually our track record isn't good when it comes to going above that level. And yeah, as Lewis said, like, I'm not surprised that the powers that be or whoever are kind of a bit scared about that. I guess to caveat that again, though, if you really need to get that player in for that one position, and if you do a deal where you pay it over 5 or 6 years, or you go the Chelsea route, right, and pay it over 9 years or 10 years or whatever, then surely there's a way you can still make it happen, right? And you think that if the scouting's got better, they could at least really try and make sure that signing is going to fit into the team. So I don't know. But, the only other thing is quickly just to say as well, we said before that if we want to be a big club or compete and we want to buy players every season, you go straight into the first 11 or replace someone in the first 11. To be fair, when we bought Van der Ven, he went straight in. When we bought Udogi, he went straight in. When we bought Porro, he went pretty much straight in. Vicario went straight in. I know he was replacing Lloris, but he still went straight in. Maddison went straight in. Who else? In fact, all of those players that we've bought within that kind of window have become starters. So I think it is important just to, balance any kind of argument and say that the players that we have brought in for money, right? It might not be the 60 million, but it could be the 30, 40. They have come in and they've strengthened the team, to be fair. Sarr, he didn't cost any of that, right? He was a lot cheaper, but he came in and he's pretty much become a first team player. So I think if you look at it that way, we have had that strategy. You could look at this window again now and say, well, the players that we wanted to come in, and that goes then back to Lewis again, actually, and says, well, Gray and Bergvall, especially Gray for 35 million. Yeah, he's not coming straight in. So maybe we could have put that 35 million and put that onto the winger, or put it onto the defensive midfielder, if anyone agrees potentially that we still need a number 6 as well, like to make us, compete maybe with the top 4. I don't know. It's interesting.
It is interesting. I mean, we could go on hours about it, but I'm not going to ask why. I just want to rate the transfer window, both of you, out of 10, and we move on to the 2019 window and what is achievable this year. So both be thinking, because I haven't decided who I'm going to come to first.
Great.
Lewis, I'll come to you first. Transfer window out of 10, what would you rate it?
I'll stick in the middle. I'll give it a 5.
Give it
Just
okay.
Err on the side of caution, so I don't get slammed for being it too low or too high. So we'll stick it in the middle.
Stick it in the middle. No, to be clear, 10's the highest, 0 is the lowest. Philip, you feeling a little bit more positive than 5?
No.
Yeah, I feel a bit more positive than that. I would say, I was going to say a 7 actually originally, but I'm going to pull that back a bit and say a 6 out of 10 actually, which is obviously kind of just below average. And I think that is because, if we had got a world-class winger in, if we'd got Pedro Neto in, just as a comparison, right, then that probably would go up to even a 7.5 straight away, or maybe even an 8. I would have been very happy with that window with Solanke as well. But because we haven't, and because we haven't strengthened the left centre back or the left wing, left side of defence, I'd have to give it, I think, a 6 or maybe a 6.5, something like that, to be honest.
Okay, let's have a look here. I mean, for me, Matty sums it up quite well. I mean, he says overall, 5 kind of out of 6 window, outgoings 9, incomings 4. I mean, I'm probably thinking the transfer window. I don't know. Do you know what? I really don't know, because we don't know whether these players are going to work out or not. So it's really hard to judge, because I mean, last window I thought was a really good window, but the players had even better than I thought. So at the time, I probably went with a 7-8 out of 10 window, whereas I've been closer to a 9, 9.5 even, based on how those players performed.
I think the outgoings is weird though, because all I say is the players that have gone out, I can agree with an 8 or 9, but I think some of the financials you have to look at it a bit weird. Gio Lo Celso, 5 million plus the option, not Johnny Cardoso will be signing for us. Another player I have on Football Manager.
What's that about? That came out absolutely nowhere. It's just crazy.
A Spurs official must be looking at my Football Manager, because everyone I'm signing is coming. But generally, it's the option for Johnny Cardoso. So let's say it's next summer, right? I think it's 2 weeks in July. We have 2 weeks. If we do not want him, we have a sell-on clause in him, but we've never owned this player. How do we have a sell-on clause in a player we've never owned? I don't understand this at all. The financials behind a move for Gio Lo Celso, very, very strange. I think we could have got a lot more for him. I think he's worth about 20-25 million, but it's 5 million plus the option to sign someone who's worth 20 million. And we probably might not even get him, because we might say, actually, no, we don't want him anymore. What is this financials all about? And some of the players we've moved on as well. I mean, a lot of players we moved on, like Japhet Tanganga, Ryan Setting, they've all gone on frees because no one is prepared to pay money for them, so they've all had to leave on a free. They've had to expire out the contracts. I mean, we've got rid of a lot of dead wood, but the amount of money we've got for them, even Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, I mean, like, as much as it was probably a good thing we got rid of him, I feel like we've been kind of robbed a little bit. I feel like, I mean, was it 10 million? 15 million? I feel like it's a little bit. It's a bit of a robbery. I mean,
12,
and it's a loan with an obligation to buy, so we're not even getting any money right now because he's on loan.
No.
Like,
it's a bad deal.
Did he have long on his contract left though?
He had a year. So next year it would have been expired, but he's moving on permanently anyway. But as much as the outgoings are good, like, we've got rid of a lot of dead wood. The amount of money we've recuperated and the financials behind all the deals, a lot of them are a bit weird.
Emerson was all right though.
Emerson, yeah, we've got about 15, 20 million, which is probably good for Emerson. I think how we haven't really lost
I
anything.
think we've done well with that in the
We've done
end.
really
I
well.
mean, everything you hear from AC Milan fans, certainly on social media,
Yeah, they're
it
not
doesn't
happy.
look good.
We've
It doesn't
absolutely,
look good.
we have absolutely
Pull their pants
robbed them.
down.
Yeah, yeah. I don't
Mm.
understand. I don't understand why they even wanted them.
Even that was a strange signing. Not many people have heard of him, and we just went, there you go.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
weird
who does the research on these players? Because even Ndombele, right, he showed tricks and that, but he's still bold. Lo Celso, these were bold signings. Gil, they hadn't really done much. It was really bold signings, and just at a time where we didn't need it with a new stadium, we needed safe. But by all means, I encourage signing marquee signings, but I don't think those risks were taken at the right time at all. But there we go. We will move on because I want to quickly discuss the 2019 window because it really bugs me. I can't get my head around it. So for people who don't know, our 2019 summer window, we signed Tanguy Ndombele for about 63 million, Jack Clark for 8.5 million, Giovanni Lo Celso for 42 million, and Ryan Sessegnon for 25 million. Right? Listen to this. It cost us 5 million of our own money to release Ndombele. So that's a huge loss of nearly 70 million on Ndombele. Jack Clark left for 750k, less than a million. Lo Celso will leave for about 3.5 million, if that. And Ryan Sessegnon left the club for free. I mean, wow. That window was awful. I mean, I think we can all agree the recruitment's improved since then. But Philip, that's just staggering, isn't it?
It's just a reaffirmation of our scouting and kind of purchasing setup, right, that we had for quite a long time. And I don't know who was buying those players. I honestly don't know who did the scouting dossier on Ndombele. I mean, there was a YouTube video going around for years, right, on Tanguy, showing how he dominated Man City, I think, in the Champions League when he played for Lyon. And it made him look like an absolute baller. And I mean, there's no doubt he's got talent, right? But it just hasn't worked out. For more.
Oh, this Philip got some technical issues, I think. Yeah, I
I
think
was
he's
the one that was.
No, he's got some technical issues, but he will be back with us shortly. We will move on. For now, it's completely fine. Yeah, I'm always having technical issues, so completely understand that. But that's fine though. I mean, Lewis, those numbers, I can't get my head around it. Do you think the recruitment's improved since then?
I hope so. I think it has. Now that window, I think, is a very strange window. I'd say. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I might be seen as being very very out there for saying this, but I generally believe, right, that Tango and Ndombele is actually one of the most talented players I think I've ever seen for Spurs. I'm being serious. I'm actually being serious. Okay, so before everyone jumps on my back,
absolutely.
I generally think up there. I definitely think Tango and Ndombele is probably one of probably in the top 5 most talented players I've ever seen put on a Tottenham shirt. I got him on the back of my shirt when he joined, and I was really happy when he scored for against Aston Villa. But I actually think he was probably one of the most. I think he's up there. If anyone remembers back, I think it was the about 2010s. Adel Taarabt, one of the most talented football players I've ever seen. But he's generally one of the most talented football players I've ever seen. Tanguy Ndombele play for Tottenham, but it's just there was no work ethic. There was in training he didn't try, or as much as I probably didn't try. He gained loads of weight. I don't know why that's happened, but he has. And I think just based off pure talent, I think he could have been something special. But as you've seen, didn't work out. Maybe you could go back to Dele Alli. I mean, one of the most talented players I've ever seen play for Tottenham. But when Pochettino left, it was also, and Jose Mourinho came in, it was everything just switched. And everything fell apart. But going back to that window, it's probably the worst window maybe in like football history. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's probably not even a bad statement saying that because how much was it in total spent? Like 120 million-ish, 100 million.
Yeah,
about 100
if not
million,
more.
and we've lost money. Like, we haven't gained any money. We haven't just lost. Everything is just lost, and everything Any players that's moved on. I mean, as you said, Ndombele, we had to pay for him to leave. Lo Celso, about 3 million of players leaving on frees. I think is horrific, and that was our first full season in the new stadium, and so everyone is back, is in the new stadium. Everyone's really excited around Spurs, right? We've got double the capacity, right? We can really make an atmosphere with the Spurs. We can really kick on now. Obviously, NFL, boxing, all of this money will be made, but and now you've just and then the first window, you've just done that. I mean, it's pretty bad, and I think that's why players like Ndombele, they've looked at that window and they've gone, we just cannot have a repeat of that, because you know how tight we are with Daniel Levy, and we're scared to make signings that cost
I
a
mean, the
lot.
ownership haven't done themselves a favour, have they? If winning one trophy in their tenure, was bad enough, and I don't feel strongly either way about the ownership. To be honest, I've got to a point where I just want to support the team. I just want to see us do well. And I don't think either way is going to have a drastic impact on that. I could be completely wrong. So, the chat, by all means, convince me to why, this ownership is good, not good. But I'm just at a point where I don't know. I think they do some really good things, but also some really bad things.
As you said, I'm 50-50 with the ownership. But what I will say though is that not even from a footballing perspective is what annoys me about this ownership. It's the fan perspective, right? What they're doing to our concessions, over 60 seniors, over 65. That by itself,
that's another awful thing. That is just greed.
That by itself is terrible. And I think, was it a report that said we were one of the 3 clubs that wanted to? What was it about European prices? Was it like we didn't want it to be lowered? Like what why are we so?
But if you don't lower the price for away fans in Europe, then that means you're also voting against lower prices for home fans as well. That's what people don't realise. Is that knock-on effect?
It's terrible. I mean, from a footballing perspective, we're spending money. We've spent over 100 million. We're actually spending money in the windows. We are. If you ever like it or not, we are actually spending quite a bit of money. But the problem I have is actually the non-footballing perspective. What they're doing with that. I mean, with the seniors, we're fans. We're not. I actually think. Do they think we're consumers or like we're customers? We're not. We're trying to support our club, and yet you're pricing out seniors of going to football. That's just not fair. They've been supporting your club for 50+ years, and this is how you treat them. It's pretty horrific, and I don't understand that. That's what my frustration lies with any higher ups. It's not actually the footballing. I'm all right with that at the moment. It's just what they're doing with fans and what they're doing from a non-footballing perspective, so to speak.
No, definitely. Philip, how do you feel on what you just heard me and Lewis kind of discuss about the ownership and their kind of bad ways? How do you kind of feel? So I know generally you're someone who's quite positive, and I think that's great. But is there anything that's frustrated you that this ownership has done kind of recently?
Yes, similar really. Just the kind of ticket prices, the same as what Louis said. The kind of seniors pricing and options around that. It's really a bit of a punch in the face, for the loyal fans that have supported for so many years. I think, how do you say, public relations wise, unfortunately, we've really put our foot in it quite often, right? In the media, when we've come out to try and kind of, be positive about the club, but, we come out in the wrong way. And even with, concerts and stuff and the other commercial activities of the club, they haven't maybe been publicized in the right way or announced in the right way. I have no issues if we want to put an NFL logo on the stadium, right, alongside Formula One and stuff. I mean, I have absolutely no issues for that. That will, in some shape or form, only benefit the image of the club somewhere and bring more money in. And I know people will complain that the money doesn't go on the team and stuff. I don't think it's quite as simple as that in reality. But for sure, if you look at the financials and stuff, there is an argument surely where, again, if we bring it back to the transfer window and incomings and stuff, if we want to take on the likes of, that lot down the road, if we want to get into the top 2, top 3, then we have to maybe take a bit more risk on occasion, and that kind of comes in with additional revenue. And I don't think the club has done a very good job at either how they've publicized kind of additional revenue streams, or how they've done press releases and stuff, or dealt with the seniors topic on pricing and stuff. I don't really understand it, to be honest. I know we've hired a lot of new people as well, to be fair, I think, into different commercial roles, into different football-esque roles. So I think we're trying to kind of build and rebuild the club, right? But I don't know, we still seem to put our foot in it quite often.
Would you say you're still behind them, though? Do you think you're still is the best option for Tottenham behind this ownership? Also, you see other things like Saudi owned Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my I've always had my worries and my concerns around the ownership, and I think we made a lot of mistakes. And for sure, on occasion, like at the end, when Poch was there, we should have gone out and spent the money on the right players at that point, right? And we could have then potentially won the title. We didn't. I've never been, ENIC out, like, per se, because I don't know what the alternative. What is the alternative? Like, it's one thing saying, oh, we'll get like a sugar daddy kind of thing, like the, Todd Bowley, or we'll, sell out to Saudi Arabia or to another country.
Would you want that, though? I mean, Chelsea. I mean, I think the number one priority for the club is being financially stable. That's the thing, and I mean, Chelsea. I think they pushed the limit. I mean, do we want that? And how important are morals in this conversation? I think again, I think you're entitled to both sides of it, but I think it's one thing that'll keep propping up. What is the alternative?
Yeah, like, if you can give me a solid alternative, right, where the investment is there, where we increase spend on the team by 50%, but we keep the good things that the club does, right, with fans there. We keep some kind of identity, right, with the ownership, in terms of the fact that we're not owned by an American trust fund, or Saudi Arabia or something like this, or China. Then I'll take it, but I don't know what the alternative is. And I would be worried that if we I'd be worried if we went to another kind of investment fund that in the end would also just want to run it completely as a business, which is what anyone would want to do normally, right? But again, it could get worse. It could genuinely get worse. There's no guarantee that if we sell the club, we're just going to go out there and then go and spend 300 million each window. There's absolutely no guarantee that, unless if we would sell to Qatar or to one of those kind of oil states where they literally come in and say, well, look, this is what we want to do. This is what we're going to spend. We don't really care about much
Would you want that also?
That's
the thing.
Yeah, and it's not always an easy question to answer. I mean, it's very easy to say yes, I want it because I want to play fantasy football. I want to do a Newcastle kind of thing. I want to do it, an Abramovich kind of thing. But if I'm being really honest, no, I wouldn't want that, because I would personally have a moral issue with it. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I would rather, and I mean, we all want success for the club, but we want to win stuff. We want to see us winning every game. We want to see us scoring goals. We want to see us actually win a trophy that isn't the Audi Cup or the Peace Cup or whatever it's called, right? But I think there's one other one as well, right? But like
Tiger Cup.
Do we want that at all costs? Do we just care about winning, like a trophy now? I would myself, having thought about it a lot, I would say no, because I would have a moral issue with that. I would be able to have if we were bought by another kind of, an individual or some kind of business collaboration or fund or something, if there was guarantees that, they're going to kind of spend X amount of money on actually improving the squad, whilst maximizing other revenue in the club or whatever. I'm not quite sure how you would be able to do that, but
okay.
Then I would I would certainly consider it, right? Because I think that the current ownership has made a lot of errors over the years, and I really wonder, anyways, what the end game is. I think from what I can see, I think that ENIC would like to actually sell in some shape or form. I think they would like to sell a percentage of the club to get more investment. It would probably take a crazy high bid of like 5 billion, 4 to 5 billion, I think, to actually sell properly. And again, the question is who would come in and pay that money. So personally, I would rather I'll put my opinion on the line here, but I would rather keep the current ownership than be taken over by, like a Qatari or a Saudi or other country kind of fund, in all honesty. But I'll say that purely.
Okay. No, I appreciate your honesty. That's really interesting to hear, actually. Lewis, how do you feel about it? If I said to you Qatari sports investment, Saudi ownership, or ENIC, what would you do?
I mean, I would be a fool not to say yes to the Saudis or Qatar. But I mean, I don't know. There's two ways you can look at it, right? Because I think with Newcastle is that what I thought would happen, right? Is the Saudis would pour in, you get your money, and I thought, okay, the atmosphere around St James's Park, maybe the fans at St James's Park would probably turn against it, and then going to Newcastle is a tourist attraction, but it's really not. Because if you go to Newcastle, they probably have one of the best atmospheres in the league. The fans are the fans of what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And it's practically the same club as what it was before and after. If anything, it's a better club now because Newcastle fans want to go to the games. They're fully behind the club. I mean, years ago, like, they've had years of I forgot the name of the previous owner. I'm sorry, but they had years and years.
Oh, Mike Ashley, yeah.
Mike Ashley. They had years and years of wanting to boot him out. They had enough of it, and Newcastle are now a much better team, from a footballing perspective, a much better team, and as a club, just a much better off club as they were 5, 10 years ago under Mike Ashley. But Man City, right? They have won absolutely anything they can possibly win, and fans of a Man City fan, if you're in your 40s now, or whatever, and you witnessed what they were when there was a League One Championship, see it now, you probably would love it. But going to Man City probably could be known as a tourist attraction now. And obviously they've got their court cases coming up. Whatever happens with that, I don't know. But if you said to me, I give you Saudis, I give you Qatari money, and what happens to us is similar to what happens to the Newcastle perspective, as if the fans stay the same. We don't get loads of fans coming in because we have loads of money now. We have fake fans, so to speak. We have because I don't want to be known as a glory hunter. Like, oh, in 20 years' time, oh, you support Tottenham Hotspur, or when did you start supporting Tottenham Hotspur? I don't want any of that. Because I'd actually hate that if someone said to me, "Oh,
yeah, I think that's awful."
If someone said to me, "Oh, you only supported Tottenham since they had the Qataris," I would absolutely hate that. So I can see where the moral thing comes in about, and look what happens to us Spurs fans that have been there from the start and been there, well, not from the start, but been there for years and years with ENIC. Because I don't want to go to a Spurs game in 20 years' time when Saudis are pouring in their money, and then I come home from it, and we win. If we win in every Premier League, sure, I wouldn't mind it, but it would just be annoying if your club is being always referred to as a glory hunter club. I would hate that. But I mean, I probably would I wouldn't mind it, to be honest.
No, okay. Before we finish, I'm going to ask both of your league position finish and just your general predictions for the season. You could do it kind of any way you like how far you think we'll get in every competition. So, Philip, I'll come to you first. Where we're going to finish in the league and how we're going to do in other competitions.
I wish I could just be a tiny bit more optimistic with the league finish, but right now, again, and based on the last couple of games that I've seen and the squad and everything else, I'm going to predict that we just miss out on the Champions League again and probably finish fifth.
Okay.
And Europa League, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think we can actually win the Europa League, right? Looking at the other teams that are in it and the format, and
there's a lot of games in it, though, isn't it? That's the only thing. Can we get through that many games? Or the Carabao Cup, there's less games. That's the easiest route to the final. So, do we prioritise that? That's the question here. What do we prioritise as fans? Well, as fans, what does Ange Postecoglou and Spurs prioritise compared to what we want prioritised?
Have we even prioritised Europa League by leaving out Spence? I don't know. Like, I have
no idea.
Unless if Forster can play, left inverted wing back, right, or something, which we don't know about, then I would question that. But I don't know. I worry that we don't have enough to win the Europa League. Actually, we've never had a good kind of record in the Europa League when we've played it previously. I'd like to say that if we focus on it and we prioritize it, and we get Ange Ball up and running, that we'd probably be the best team in there. But there is some other good teams in there, and I would worry that we'd get to the semis or potentially the final and just not have enough to get over the line. I'd like to be positive and say we'll win it, but I don't think we will. I will be positive though and say that we'll win one of the domestic cups. I actually generally have a feeling that we have enough, and that we maybe get a bit of luck with a draw for a change as well. Kind of get a bit of a route through, a bit like England do normally, and get to the final or something and win one of them. But I don't think it's going to be if we win one of the domestic cups, it would have been a successful season, right, for us at the end of the day. But I don't know, unfortunately, the beginning of the season, despite all the possession that we had, despite all of the, shots that we had in the last couple of games, and with the kind of injuries that we've already had, I'm not feeling amazingly positive about the season.
No, that's understandable.
And I hope that changes.
We wanted.
That could change quite easily, quite quickly, like through October, through November, But right now, I'm not feeling that positive. So I'm saying 5th, probably Europa League semis, maybe, and let's say the Carabao Cup, to be honest.
Okay. Thank you very much. I love this comment from Matty, and I hope he's right? He thinks semi-final of the Europa League, FA Cup third round, obviously that wouldn't be good, but League Cup win. I mean, I'd take that semi-final and a domestic cup win. Well, domestic cup win, the Europa League win. I mean, I think that would be a great season. Matty, where we going to finish in the league as well? That sounds great. Actually, I'm not bothered where we finish in the league. I'll take that semi-final and a win. Wow. That's the most positive I think I've heard yet. But thank you, Philip. Lewis, how are we going to do all competitions? I haven't really asked you this yet.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't up until now. Look, the first 3 games haven't been desirable. I feel like we've been the better team every game, but it's down to being clinical, and we haven't been that clinical. But we have got a man that we haven't really seen yet, and that's Big Dom Solanke, who's going to win us a trophy this season. I can't promise you it, because I'd hate to promise you something, but I think I'll be very honest. I think we'll finish 7th in the Premier League. And now, before anyone gets a little bit, well, we're finishing 7th in the Premier League. That is horrific. We're going to win the Europa League. And what does that achieve you? It achieves you Champions League football. And I'm very happy, right? If someone said to me now, you bomb the Premier League, I mean, I finished 10th in the Premier League, but you win the Europa League and get Champions League football, I'll happily take that. You'd be a fool not to take that. And there's Spurs fans out there. I'm not trying to disregard. I'm not trying to just be rude to them or anything like that. But there's generally some Spurs fans who would rather finish 4th and not win the Europa League than finish 10th or 11th and win the Europa League. And it makes no sense. It makes 0 sense. Because I would, if you said to me now, you finish 15th and win the Europa League, I'll probably take that. I probably would. I mean, I really don't care. I mean, I really don't. And the thing is with Spurs, right? And the thing is about as much as the Carabao Cup is the last trophy we won, you only get 100,000. You only get 100K for winning that trophy. And I'm not trying to say, I want to win this trophy because you get more money for it.
Yeah,
but is that an abomination, right? You win a trophy and the prize money is £100,000. I mean, clubs like Man City and Liverpool, they probably don't even care if they win that. But if we won that, we'd probably be over the moon. But that's the difference. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if we finish set the 3rd round, as someone said, in the FA Cup, and Carabao Cup. Wouldn't be surprised if we lose to Coventry in a couple of weeks' time. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But no, I feel like we could actually win the Europa League, and I'll say this because we have Roma in our league phase and at home, and that will tell you everything you need to know. Because I think Roma are probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in that competition. Not Man, because us Man United. That will tell you if we go at home, we beat them about 2-3-0, which I think we're capable of doing. If we send out our best team, I think we're capable of winning the Europa League. And I think any Spurs fan, you say to them, finish 7th, 6th, 7th, about there, go out 3rd round FA Cup, about quarters Carabao Cup, but you win the Europa League. I'll take that, and I think that's something that I think we can win the Europa League. I think we're the best team, but on paper, I think we're the best team in the Europa League. I think we can win it.
Okay, I hope you're right. Good point here from Matty Osherman to Galatasaray. I mean, that's scary what we come up against. But Philip, did you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, having kind of thought about it again and following on from Lewis there, I'm changing my hope for the season of prediction. So
Okay.
I'm going to take away the Carabao Cup.
For Europa League.
I'm going to put the Europa League in,
Converted.
and we won't qualify for the Champions League and the league, and I don't really care where we finish as long as it's not below, like 7th, let's say, right? But the reason as well is just to give another a bit of a random analogy here. I'm Spurs through and through, right, from birth. Growing up in the UK, but I moved to Germany like 15 years ago, and my German team that I've adopted here is Eintracht Frankfurt, right, which actually have a very similar kind of history and kind of level to Spurs over the years. They've got a very big traditional, fan base, massive away support. They've won 2 league titles, I think, in their history, same as us. They've won a bunch of domestic cups, same as us, and they've got a very strong track record in Europe. But a long time ago, they won 2 UEFA Cups, just like us. And a couple of seasons ago, they were on the same track of trying to get into the Champions League again, right? Trying to improve. They improved their scouting. They improved their things, right? They got good players in. They got rid of outgoings, and they were on a good trajectory. And they prioritized the Europa League. And Eintracht basically lives for Europe, right? A bit like Spurs almost used to do, right? In our glory nights, right? When for us, the biggest thing is a European night, right? Under the floodlights. That's the same what Eintracht does. And they went all the way through. They won the Europa League in Spain and obviously qualified for the Champions League the next season. I think they finished 7th or 8th in the league that season as well.
Yeah.
And just that, obviously, that one experience, not only of obviously qualifying for the Champions League, but actually winning the UEFA Cup again. And it's not just the Carabao Cup, right? The Europa League is the UEFA Cup. That cup is like, 10 times better than the Carabao Cup at the end of the day, right? The UEFA Cup, the Europa League it's a massive trophy. Like at the end of the day, right? It's massive and it's part of our history. Like we need to go all out to do the same as Eintracht did. And just that one win alone, the amount of positivity that would give us and the fans, like the celebrations, the positivity, and the Champions League, it's and actually, as you said, Roma is strong, Galatasaray, but we should get through these games if we want to really if we're saying that we're good enough.
We should do,
Champions League, or we want to become a top 3 team, right? If we want to buy all these young players and bed them in, because it is still this kind of project, right? So theoretically, next season we should be stronger even, and the season after we should be stronger even. So maybe we're good enough then to actually qualify 3rd or 4th, in the league. But it's there, and Lewis is a very good point. I've changed my opinion on that. We need to go all out to do this, and we need to absolutely prioritize it, because it would kill about 3 birds with 1 stone as well, to be honest. Literally, right?
Yes, it certainly would.
If we did that, if we can get to the final, if we can win the Europa League in one swoop, it literally, it ticks off all the things that we've been waiting for, and it gives us next season in the Champions League with a massive trophy, with the additional money that brings as well. So actually, it's a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, I think so. But I think that nicely wraps us up for this special summer transfer window show. Thank you very much to everyone who's listened, whether it be afterwards or live and got involved. We do appreciate each and every single one of you. If you're interested in supporting us further, but subscribing to the channel over on YouTube at Scarfy Spurs, we massively appreciate it as you try and get eventually to 2,500 subscribers. You could do that, let's say by Halloween. That'd be absolutely fantastic. That's got to be the aim, if not the end of the year. But if you listen on a podcast platform after, don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review. If you can come back as well, it'd be massively appreciated. Very keen to get your thoughts. But thanks to my panel today. Firstly, Lewis, as always, where can people find you? And thank you very much.
Yeah, so on Twitter or X, Romero17 season, I said there. I say it all the time. I'm never really active on there, so but you can follow it. Why not? Why don't you? But yeah,
Why not?
but most of my work on social media is on Scarfy Spurs Talk Twitter page. So make sure you're following that, and I try and post as much as I can. So why don't you go follow that as well?
Yeah, please do. Thank you very much for coming on. And Philip, thank you as well. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm sporadically on Twitter, X, whatever, under Frankfurt Spurs. So I generally like to, I do a lot of liking and retweeting. And when I get angry or frustrated about Spurs, I tend to vent my feelings on there as well. But along with retweeting and liking this show, of course, as well. So thank you for having me on. And I guess we're all looking forward to a great season ahead.
Let's hope so. Matty says in the YouTube chat, opinions on Spence not being in the squad. Go back, Matty. I think you missed it to near the start of the show. We discussed Jed Spence, but to give you an idea, all three of us are not happy that Jed Spence is not in the squad. I don't think it's what any of us would have done. I'm fuming myself. 4 goalkeepers. I think that's indefensible and inexcusable. But that does wrap us up nicely for today's show. So a massive, as always, come on you Spurs, get behind the team, stop being a negative Nelly, and enjoy this season.
Working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You turned us into something new. And Postecoglou, you know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it. And Postecoglou, we're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, we look so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh.
Follow Scarfy Spurs Talk this summer for all the Spurs